in the past that the time she'd be here till 10:30 or 11 at night on a weeknight just to publicly speak on some issues of concern to her. I believe Jack Plum was similar. Mrs. Hughes is also another person. In the past, we've used a term for appointments, cross-reference of the citizens from various backgrounds and areas of townships. All three of these people have excellent professional backgrounds. All three of these people live in different geographic areas of our township. My most recent request to the township, I asked Mrs. Kugler and Jack Plum what the exact title was of the position they were applying for, to make sure I had it correct. Their words were Land Use Steering Committee. Many of us in our township get these quarterly newsletters. The most current one, spring of 2019, page 6. It talks about planning and zoning. Mr. Holbert's the administrator. Says we are still in need of your help. We are looking for dynamic and positive people. I can't think of any more that's people that showed up dynamic and positive. They know this material backward and forward. I believe there's at least 2 other, possibly 3 other people that have applied. How much longer do we need to delay this important aspect? The rate we're going now, the new book will come out, and none of these people will have any insight, will have any input on it. I have a concern over that. I also read in that material that Mr. Holbert sent to me, one of the requirements was basically a Sycamore Township resident. I've been a resident here for 30 years. I've been to more of these meetings, aside from you people, anyone here in this room. Do I qualify for these positions? Based on that line, I believe I do. So if there's, as I understand it, 3 openings plus 1 for an alternate, Trustee LaBarbera has mentioned the credentials or background of, he believes another person is qualified. I'm not disputing that. But whether it's 3, 4, or 5 people, how long are we gonna wait? I don't understand why we don't have a deadline. I don't understand, has Mrs. Hughes ever been interviewed by any of you? Mrs. Kugler ever been interviewed by any of you? Has Jack Plum ever been interviewed by any of you? Are you waiting for a specific candidate? If so, whom? I think all of them meet your criteria. Would anyone like to comment on that? And if you still persist in delaying, I guess I would ask, and possibly our newest trustee, Trustee LaBarbera, would you like to make a motion, Trustee LaBarbera, tonight to appoint Mr. Plum, Mrs. Kugler, Mrs. Hughes to these committees, whether they're steering, planning, zoning? Would you like to do that, sir?
You know, I'm not gonna do that because we need more than what we have. So we get a couple more, but I will say that I like the list of people that have applied. And I think George Teaneck for the zoning is absolutely, and when you talk about Tracy Hughes and real estate, my goodness, the credentials are off the wall. And then you have another person who's totally different, in different aspects, she sees the world differently than I do, but you need Kathy Kugler on a board like that. You don't want everybody to be the same. And Jack Flynn is just beyond reproach. Now, one of the things that I question, I don't know if you're doing it or not, but when somebody, like George Teaneck in January applies for a position, my goodness, at least get back to the person. When I came on board, the first week I was here, we talked about communication and getting back to people. When people call the office to do something, so let's do that. I don't know that you are doing that, but it seems like people aren't being communicated. There's a bridge, they're not being told.
I talked to George Teaneck the week after he submitted his application and said, you're being considered, but we have to get more applicants.
Okay.
We have had 1 since then, that came in last week, so yeah, I get back.
You are getting back to people?
Gary gets back to people, if
Kathy
he needs more
Kugler,
information
maybe
from
heard from you. Tracy Hughes has heard from you. You've heard from, you haven't, Tracy?
The only time I hear from them is when I approach people.
Okay, we should-
I have made all the approach.
When somebody applies, I think you automatically get back to them.
I'll defer to
Within the
Harry,
24
he
hours.
takes the applications. I believe you've requested more information from a couple individuals, haven't you?
I have, and, Mr. LaBarbera, as you know, my position, as you've required me to get more education, and you felt it was important for me to.
Now, wait a second, hold on, Harry.
Let me finish.
Hold on.
I finished.
Speak.
Let's go.
You can respond, let him
I'm
speak.
trying to address your question professionally, okay? So, as you felt it was important for me to get, additional training after I've been doing this type of work all my life, but I don't have the AICP, I've still been doing the work a long time, and the Board of Trustees felt I was qualified to be put into the position of planning and zoning administrator. With that being said, and the importance that's behind a land use plan that will affect our residents, our businesses, our communities, I felt it was important to put out guidelines and just some basic requirements. Anybody in here that holds a position, they probably had to send in a resume. They came to that interview, if they got called for that interview, they probably dressed professionally, they had a good manner about them, they had a great attitude, they wanted the job. I'm not getting that with these positions. I'm getting people who are mad at me because, I don't know, but I felt it was very important to have qualified people that, I think it's a challenge when somebody comes to zoning commission meetings where we're reviewing the code and they say, I don't understand what you're talking about. I think it's very challenging for us to then appoint that person to a board that's gonna review the land use plan. This is a legal and binding document, and as all you know, because of all the appeals that come in front of you, this is a serious document, and I think it requires serious consideration. I think it requires serious applicants, and I feel that they need to be qualified, and ultimately, you three are gonna make that decision, but what I would like to do, and I expressed this in an email, I would like to put the best candidates in front of you, and just because, and this goes with every job out there, just because you want the job, doesn't mean you get it. Now, there's a difference here. Land use steering committee should be educated on land use. The residents coming and giving their input, obviously, that's very important. But that's not, you can express your opinion as a resident on what you feel should be, but the land use steering committee are gonna be the ones that need to take that into consideration and come up with the items that they wanna put in front of you three to vote on. That's a very important document. So when I look at the people who have applied, I've sent numerous emails out with basic, please send me your resume, and I still don't get them. And then I send out another email that says, after you asked me to, we've kind of talked about, we need to get people on this, you being the board. And I send it out and I get a letter that's basically, here's what I do and here's what I've done, and it's not a resume, Jim, and all I'm trying to do is do a standard hiring process for a very important set of residents, business owners, real estate, attorney, that are going to have a very important part of this document's approval. That's all I'm trying to do, nothing more, nothing less.
I'm sorry, you maybe misunderstood my question here. My question was, when somebody applies for a position, have the courtesy to respond to them within a timely manner. That's what no, you don't. Because we just heard
emails.
people that, I know. For instance, my case,
Yeah.
in a meeting recently,
Yeah.
and I emailed Doug Miller for some legal on this. I have no idea what that was all about, and I'll check into it. In a meeting we had, this was Doug Miller, not you.
Oh, okay.
In a meeting we had, I asked you to send me what resumes you have for these people who are applying.
Yes.
And then you said at that meeting, am I allowed to send you emails?
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to know from Greg Bickford and from Doug Miller, our law director, who told you not to send me emails? Okay, now, I do get the emails back from you. right? I asked you, you sent it back to me very nicely, but I was missing two that were very obvious. My friend Jack Flume, whose resume is off the wall, and Kathy Kugler. So I didn't get them all. I didn't get them all.
Do you know why you didn't get them?
Tell me
Because
why.
I didn't get them. Jack Flume has never sent me a resume. Kathy Kugler just sent hers the other day.
No, wait, I got somebody else apply, Tom James.
I
was it
made a
you?
document request for it. and
Somebody sent
received
it to me.
Your document request was not just for resumes. Your request was for resumes. Mr. Janis's request was for some other board that didn't even exist and some other committee, which I sent him the documents. I send you exactly what you're asking for. I try to fulfill the request. And that's based on training that when I've been through, I can't think of the term now, public records requests and how we are to fulfill those documents. We fulfill them as the request. I don't make stuff up, I don't throw stuff in, I don't take stuff up. I give you exactly what you asked for.
Let me ask you something.
Okay.
While on this subject, Harry.
We're gonna
Holbrook.
close this down in a minute, so get your questions out, because we've been doing this now for a while.
We'll just.
No, I want you to do it, I want you to do it.
No, let it go.
Okay, I don't want you to not get your question, so go ahead and finish.
Okay, let me ask you something. When you do a follow-up, Mr. Bickford, when you do a follow-up on say a new fence, somebody puts a new fence up, okay, so you get all the paperwork and you go, what is the time frame when you go back to check to see if that fence is okay? If the passage is in, how much time? How much time is reasonable time?
Would you do me a favor and elaborate? Are you, for me?
I'm
Mr.
asking you a
Bickford?
question. The
Okay.
question is this.
Okay,
Jim LaWhite puts a fence up in his backyard.
Yes.
Okay, I have all the
did you do it with a
paperwork.
permit?
I have all the permits,
Okay.
I've got it in there. And then you're gonna come by and give me the final inspection, right, on that
Yes.
fence. What is the time frame that's reasonable that you will come and inspect my fence?
It's based on the workload.
Okay, would you say 9.5 years after that fence is installed is a reasonable time?
I'd say 9.5 years is a little long.
Okay.
But you're
And
saying
you-
a follow-up inspection, right?
Yes, and you
Is
did
a
that to a
follow-up-
resident, recently,
I did?
yes. Came knocking on their door to do a final inspection on their fence. And it was a resident who came to one of these meetings for one of the departments.
Yeah.
So I just want Mr. Bickford to be aware of that and to take a look at that, okay? And we can move on from that
Okay.
next discussion.
Mr. Janice, anything else?
Just a few more things. Mr. James mentioned some issues relative to my word, auditory, meaning lack of people in the audience being able to hear you, being able to hear people speak from this microphone to you. As a state certified open records, open meeting graduate, if you will, it does, they have, every year they put out, the state attorney general puts out a book they call the Yellow Book, the Sunshine Laws book. In there it clearly states, anytime the public cannot be heard or hear, that meeting is not considered a public meeting. So, I believe Mr. Fortin and others have audio-video recordings of one of the meetings Mr. James was attempting to speak. I believe one of the commissions or boards here earlier, and somebody's coming up and adjusting this microphone because he can't be heard. And if we can't be heard, or people sitting in this audience can't be heard behind me, and I can't read lips, think of people that's watching it on audio at home or on their computers or whatever. I think that needs a lot of work. It really does. I can understand once, twice, but it seems to be a constant issue. And I think that needs to be addressed. Last but not least, I am disappointed to what earlier Mr. LaBarbera had said, and part of the prayer invitation, that this township, on this day of very historic 75 days of D-Day, there was no proclamations, no resolutions, wouldn't have been for Mr. LaBarbera, this township would have gone on with no record of it. I think that's very disappointing. Those of you who read my weblog, and I'm bragging and boasting, from my, I guess you would say, extended family, I had someone killed in action on D-Day. I had an uncle who got shot up, seriously wounded on D-Day. That day is very important to me. That day is very important to my family. As I said once before the zoning meeting, there are some within the sound of my voice here tonight that don't appreciate veterans. I'm a veteran. I appreciate what I've done for my nation. I appreciate what my relatives have done for this nation. Like all of you here tonight also know that Mr. LaBarbera is a veteran. He's very quiet about it, but I think that's very important to know. All of you here tonight, with flags behind us, I want all of you to go home tonight. I want all of you to think about the significance of this day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you go, Jay, I had a chance to look it up. And you may not carry you may not possess a firearm in any building that is a government facility of the state or political subdivision of the state and not used primarily as a shelter, restroom, parking facility for motor vehicles or rest facility.
So then.
You can't carry it here.
Northern, as I call it, the meeting room, community room up north, that would be.
I would say probably not, because the fire department's in that building also. And I would say that building is more than a shelter.
Okay.
Shelter, I think, would be like over in Bethel.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Greg, anybody else wish to speak?
Doug McGrew.
Doug McGrew, 4212 Myrtle Avenue. I've sat here and listened for an hour and a half, nothing but trustee bashing for political purposes, and it's getting old. All the people that spoke are all the same political affiliation in one organization, and it's kind of sad that they've spent the last hour and a half attacking Mr. Connor, Mr. Porter, and Mr. Holbert, because Mr. LaBarbera at one time worked underneath Mr. Holbert and spent a lot of times blasting him and his qualifications when it came to reviews and everything else. Another citizen got up here and mentioned how Mr. LaBarbera needs to go to training to get his education, because he didn't have the education for this position. And we continue to go down this realm. Now we're going down the realm about the festival. Oh my gosh, it costs $100,000. Well, you know what, or more. Last year I had a unique opportunity. I spoke with hundreds and hundreds of people at that festival because we had the sales tax petition. Because we had 2 out of 3 of our commissioners passed a sales tax that the citizens didn't get to vote on. So I spoke with hundreds and hundreds of people at the beer booths, getting petitions signed for 2 nights straight. I can't tell you that at least probably about 40% of the ones I spoke to came in from out of town for the festival. They stayed in hotels, they ate at restaurants, they spent money, they went in there with their families. They were on the buses with their families going back and forth with the service that the township provides. So it's, you want to count about whether or not they've made or lost money. I think they made money because no one's ever quantified how many people have stayed in the hotels in the area. How many people have increased eating at the restaurants, going to the parks and everything because they brought their kids and their families. So every time we bring up this thing that Mr. LaBarbera is on record as not wanting to have the festival any longer, that I think we need to also look at, this is an investment in the community, because it brings a lot of people from all over. One gentleman was from Iowa. I had another one that was from Wisconsin. They come down here annually with their families for this festival. So $100,000, $150,000, I think is a little petty in the amount of how much income it brings into the community. Deer Park over here has been struggling for a while because we don't have enough developments bringing more businesses into the area. We have our first minority-owned new business that just opened up on Blue Ash Road over there. thankfully, because the business environment's here. But the way the political parties that are attacking Mr. Connor, Mr. Porter, Mr. Holbert want to act, they want to get rid of these three individuals and turn us into a worse environment. I don't think that's a good idea, and I think it should be exposed. The majority of the people sitting behind me are of the same civic association and the ones who've been trying to attack everybody. I think it's childish, and I think it needs to stop. If you want to have issues, talk about it. But to go on and personally attack people about whether or not they have the exact numbers that they presented in the meeting earlier today is ridiculous.
Thank you. Anybody else?
That's it.
Okay. Sheriff Patrol Report, Lieutenant.
Good evening, Board. I don't have a lot to report, so please bear with me if I'm out of town. One thing I would like to talk about, now that the kids are out of school, we're starting to receive a lot of complaints, particularly in the subdivisions about teen drivers. The chief complaint, we've had 3 so far this week. The chief complaint is juvenile motorists blowing through intersections, failing to stop at stop signs. And it's kind of taking place everywhere, Highmire, Dillonville, Sterling Run, places, it's across the board. If you have a teenage driver at home, we'd like you to maybe brush up on a few things with them, revisit some drivers' training issues, rules of the road, things of that nature. It's been my humble opinion from my background in traffic safety that, that is one of the pitfalls of getting your driver's license. We tend to rush kids through driver's training. They get that license, they're very eager. Part of it is also a convenience factor for parents. And we rush the kids through. They're novice drivers, they're inexperienced, they get out and they make a mistake and then we get mad at them. Their parents get mad at them, police officers write them tickets, and insurance agents and companies also have a thing or two to say about the situation. So if you have a teen driver at home, please review some things with them. Rules of the road, spend a couple hours in the car with them, maybe you can pick up on bad habits or things, see some things that they're not seeing. The frustrating thing about traffic issues is traffic citations and crashes are preventable largely. So that's just something that we're receiving a lot of this week, as a matter of fact, is problems with juvenile motorists.
Lieutenant?
Speed is also a factor. Yes, sir.
Are you on the Nextdoor website?
I am not.
Nextdoor Deer Park it encompasses a large area. There was a long posting of people that listed specific intersections where people were just blowing through stop signs. And a lot of it was around the Rossmoyne area and Dillonville, but if you ever get a chance to go look that up, there's a ton of
We've